Welcome to Pondicherry Maritime Academy. Myself, Capt.Moovendhan. Today we are going to talk about the evaluation of tank atmospheres in oil, chemical and gas tankers. Evaluation of tank atmosphere. Why a tank atmosphere have to be evolved? The cargo carried in a tanker vessel are very hazardous and very reactive in nature, right? It is therefore very important that the cargo carried in such spaces are to be of approved type as per the codes and the conventions like SOLAS, IGC code, IBC code and the IMDG code, etc. The atmosphere in a cargo tank on an oil tanker, chemical tanker or a gas tanker can be of one or the combination of the following which we are going to discuss. First, we start up with this flammability. Flammability is a primary risk in handling oil and petroleum cargoes. This is further classified into two. First thing is non-volatile cargoes which has a flash point of 60 degrees and above as determined by closed cup method of testing. And the second one is volatile cargoes with a flash point of below 60 degrees determined by closed cup testing methods. Then we talk about the toxicity. This factor defines how much substance is being carried in unsafe when touched, swallowed or inhaled by human beings. Gas generated from oil, petroleum products can be considered as toxic as they contain hydrocarbon which is harmful to human beings. The next thing, the reactivity. Reactivity with air, water and other cargoes. This is one of the major hazard you can consider, like some chemical cargoes may react with water and form toxic vapors or damage the cargo equipment itself or the tank itself in which they are stored in. Reactivity is one of the worst criteria which can happen. Like it depends upon the chemical what you carry. And then the next one is oxygen deficient. Most of the oil and chemical cargoes are carried under inert conditions for safe of the ship and the crew. The oxygen content in the tank is decreased to a safe level with the help of the inert gas what we generate on board by means of inert gas generators. Even after emptying the cargo tanks, the oxygen level will remain at a dangerously low level unless the tank is prepared for safe use with the supply of fresh air and monitoring the equipments for continuous checking of O2 levels. The next thing we deal with corrosivity. Some cargoes, for example sulfuric acid, is highly corrosive to most metals and hence can affect the internal structure of the tank and the cargo equipments itself. They are normally carried in stainless steel tanks, but it is important that before loading any sulfuric acid cargo inside the cargo tank, the tank is to be free from water, chlorides, foreign particles or any previous cargo residues. This is just an example what I gave it for sulfuric acid. It depends upon the various types of chemical cargoes or the oil cargo which you are supposed to carry on board your cargo tanks, right? Hence, the requirement for controlling the tank atmosphere largely dependent on the type of cargo to be carried on board, variety of cargo to be carried at the same time, for example, a chemical tanker, right? And the system and machinery is fitted to maintain the required atmospheric conditions and the condition of the coating of the cargo tank if applicable. The type of protection in the tank what we take by means of inerting, passing layers, like example we use nitrogen padding, all those things which is to be considered for protection of the cargo tank atmosphere. Next what we are going to see about is the importance of tank atmosphere evaluation. A cargo tank on a tanker vessel, name it, be a oil tanker, chemical tanker or a gas tanker, is the most important and highly dangerous space on board a ship as it carries a cargo which worth millions of dollars and has a high risk of explosion, spillage, fire, health hazards, etc. It is important to evaluate the atmosphere of the cargo tank because of the following reasons, but not limited to. Before entering into any space for inspection, repair work, as it is an enclosed space. Basically, a cargo tank comes under an enclosed space. Before taking the ship to a dry dock or shipyard for any repair works, before gas freeing, inerting, purging operation to be done in the cargo tanks, before loading a new cargo in a tank, before crude oil washing or washing the cargo tanks. On all these occasions, one has to evaluate the tank atmosphere so that you come to know what is the present condition of the tank, how much gas is there, how much toxic gases are there, what can be the result if I do this, what can be the effect if I do that, right? Data for tank atmosphere evaluation. Why do we need to have such data, and who is asking you to give these data? Any evaluation of a cargo space in a tanker vessel is the only way to get the correct statistics about the composition of the tank atmosphere to carry out the above mentioned operation. Like I said, the tank evaluation, isn't it? Some of the above operation requires human entry, like what we discussed before, the enclosed space entry or the crude oil washing. After you do crude oil washing, you maybe you have to enter into a tank for any inspection, right? And such operations must know various composition of the atmosphere in the tank and make an entry as per SOLAS regulation 11, 1 and 7, right? The SOLAS itself, it comes up and says, like, before entering into any tank, your atmosphere of the cargo tank should be evaluated, right? Following are the data required and steps to be taken from the tank or cargo to evaluate the atmosphere inside. Nature of the constituent gas. The second one, toxicity. The cargo tank atmosphere should not contain any significant concentration of toxic gases. The third, oxygen content. The oxygen content should be confirmed as 20.9% before a man enters into a tank and maintained thereafter till the work inside the tank is finished. Hydrocarbon content and flammability. The safe gas concentration in any enclosed space, including cargo tanks, should not be more than 1% of lower explosive limits of the dangerous substance. And the fifth one is the reactivity. Ensure the materials used for certain reactive cargoes are approved as per under the MSDS and not reactive to it. For example, acid retained hoses to be used, acid resistant hoses to be used for sulfuric acid cargoes. And the last but not the least, the inert gas system. The inert gas system needs to be isolated. It is recommended that the cargo tank adjacent to the space to be entered into should be also tested for cargo vapors and or the toxic gases and oxygen content. And where appropriate, the inert gas pressure should be lowered to reduce the possibility of any inert gas leak into the adjacent tank. The next thing, how do we evaluate the tank atmosphere? There are certain equipments which is given on board a ship to do the evaluation of the atmosphere of the cargo tank. The various equipments used on board to evaluate the cargo tank atmosphere are tank scopes, explosimeters, oxygen meters, multi-gas detectors, toxic gas detectors or dragger tubes. So these are the equipments which they help in doing the tank evaluation, right? So any of the equipments, whatever the equipment you use, either it is a toxic gas detector, it's multi-gas detector, oxygen meter or explosimeter or tank scope, these equipments have to be calibrated before we use. Like as such, it is used every now and then. Before every use, these equipments have to be calibrated with the means of span gas. Right? Before using the equipment as such, you have to be familiar with the operational criteria and the limitations about the equipment. There are certain manuals which is given for the usage of these equipments. You have to refer and you have to get to know the span gas which is supposed to be used for the particular equipment which is there on board the ship, right? So what are all the tests we do when before we use this gas meters? The first thing, you have to make sure your equipment is serviced properly in an annual basis, and the second thing, your equipment is in good order and the sensors and the filter elements, everything is in good order. And the next one, you have to do a fresh air calibration so that your equipment is reading the values properly or not. And the next thing is the span gas calibration. Span gas calibration, there are different modes of span gas calibration. Either you can do it one calibration or all the gases together or auto calibration, depending upon the equipment what you have on board the ship, right? When you are doing a span gas calibration, there are calibration for LEL and the volume. It is always advised that this calibration gas what you use for LEL and the volume are the same. You are not supposed to use different gas or different percentage of volume of LEL. Basically, like you have to use the same span gas with LEL value and then the volume value for calibration. With this, we end this session on evaluation of tank atmosphere. We'll meet up in the next video on the enclosed space entry procedures. Do leave your questions on the comments below. If you like the video, please do like, subscribe and share it with your shipping friends so that they also can enhance their knowledge on the tank evaluation procedures. Thank you.